It's not what you do once that changes your life. It's what you do daily. Repetition carves identity, sharpens skill, and builds empires. Most people get tired of the basics and never master the fundamentals. The wealthy understand this. They don't rely on feelings. They rely on design. Their mornings are not chaotic. They're crafted. They don't drift. They direct. Each day they do what matters most before the noise begins. A few minutes of reading, a moment of reflection, a handwritten goal list, a focused action plan. These are not small things. These are the seeds that grow into legacy. Because when you win the morning, you don't just win the day, you win the week, the month, the year, and eventually the life. Most people wake up hoping. The wealthy wake up executing. And the difference between a day of hope and a day of execution is everything. So, the question is, what are you repeating? Because whether you know it or not, your habits are shaping your destiny. Your routine is your prophecy. It's predicting your future. The mental blueprint for success isn't hidden. It's just not flashy. But if you follow it, it works every time. Let me tell you something that separates the successful from the merely hopeful. It's not brilliance. It's not background. It's not even timing. It's the simple, unglamorous, often ignored habit of follow-through. See, anybody can start a race. That doesn't take much. Starting feels good. It's the rush of a new idea, the buzz of a fresh resolution. But success doesn't live at the starting line. It lives at the finish line. And the only ones who get there are those who've mastered the daily, deliberate act of continuing, especially when it gets boring, inconvenient, or tough. Years ago, I met a young man with ambition in his eyes and too many ideas in his notebook. He'd start one business, then get distracted by another. He'd read one book, then jump to the next chapter in a different one. He was always busy, but never complete. Always chasing, but never catching. One day I asked him, "When was the last time you saw something through all the way to the end?" He got quiet. That silence, that's where most people lose. They quit halfway. They get excited, then overwhelmed. They get started, but never finish. So, here's how you fix that. Choose just one goal, not 10, one. And make it clear. Just say, get in shape. Say, run 3 miles a day for 30 days. Don't just say, grow my income. Say, land 2 new freelance clients this month. Specificity creates clarity. Clarity creates focus. And focus creates momentum. Now break that goal down into weekly actions. Don't get lost in big dreams. Big dreams are great, but if you don't turn them into small, repeatable actions, they'll stay locked in your mind. Write down what you'll do this week. Then do it. Simple? Yes. Easy? Not always. But effective? Every time. The reason the wealthy finish what they start isn't because they're more disciplined by nature, it's because they train it by habit. When they commit to something, they treat that commitment like a sacred contract. And if something tries to interrupt that contract, laziness, distraction, doubt, they don't negotiate with it. They get back to the task. And they don't allow themselves the luxury of quitting just because the feeling wore off. When I first committed to building my career, I told myself this: no new goals until the current one is completed. That one principle changed everything. It forced me to choose wisely. It made me count the cost before I started. It helped me finish things. And every time I completed a goal, no matter how small, it built my confidence, sharpened my discipline, and gave me results I could actually use. I didn't just gain knowledge, I gained traction. And traction, my friend, is what builds success. So don't chase novelty, chase completion. Don't be the one who always starts strong and fades. Be the one who follows through. Because in the end, wealth doesn't belong to the one with the most ideas, it belongs to the one who turns the best ideas into finished results. When I was a young man, I didn't start off confident. I started off unsure, hesitant, afraid of looking foolish. I'd hesitate to speak up, second-guess my choices, and doubt whether I could ever really succeed. But over time, I discovered something that changed my life. Confidence is not something you wait for, it's something you build. And it doesn't come from thinking about action, it comes from action itself. You don't wait until you feel confident to act. You act your way into confidence. I began by choosing one thing each day that made me a little uncomfortable, something that stretched me, something I normally would have put off. I remember when I had to start making phone calls to set appointments. I didn't feel like doing it. I was afraid of rejection. But I made a rule for myself. Do it first. Before breakfast, before distractions, before fear had a chance to get louder. Do the difficult thing first. Because I learned that when you push through resistance early, you win the whole day. Every day, pick one task that challenges you, a task you've been avoiding, one that matters. It might be making that sales call or having that honest conversation or reading the chapter you've been skipping. When you do it, something starts to shift. You start to tell your mind, I can rely on myself. And that's where real confidence is born. It's not bravado. It's not puffing yourself up. It's the quiet inner strength that says, I do what needs to be done. When you act on what you say, you build integrity with yourself. And when you build integrity, you build trust. And when you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. That's the foundation. Not talent, not talk trust. And trust is built one action at a time. Some people try to think their way into confidence. They read the books, watch the videos, attend the events, but they never put it to use. It's like standing next to the pool, studying swimming, but never getting in the water. At some point, you've got to jump in. You've got to make the call, write the plan, knock on the door. That's when theory becomes truth. Even small actions count. I used to challenge myself to do tiny disciplines wake up when I said I would, make my bed, organize my notes. It wasn't about the task itself. It was about sending a message to myself. I follow through. And the more I followed through, the louder that message became. Don't wait for the perfect moment to begin. Begin and the moment becomes perfect. Most people reverse it. They wait for belief before they move, but belief comes after movement. It follows results. You do, you see progress, and then belief grows. That's the order. You act, you build, you believe. And the more you act, the more confidence you build, not because everything goes perfectly, but because you realize you can handle what comes. So, choose that one task. Do it today. Don't wait for the feeling. Let the action lead, and the feeling will follow. Because confidence isn't given, it's built in the fire of daily follow-through. And once you've built it, it'll carry you further than talent ever could. I remember early in my career, I was finally starting to earn more than I ever had. And the temptation to spend, to show it off, to prove I had made it was real. I could feel it pulling on me. But I also remembered a mentor once told me, be careful not to trade your future for a feeling. That stuck with me. So instead of giving in to impulse, I practiced the habit of pausing. That became my secret weapon. Just a moment of reflection. Does this align with my goals? Does this help me build what I said I wanted? And if the answer was no, I had to train myself to walk away. Every time you say no to something small, you say yes to something great. When you turn down a meaningless distraction, you create space for meaningful growth. That's how you protect your time, your energy, your money. Not by being cheap, but by being clear. Clarity is the armor of the wealthy. And clarity says, that's not for me. Not because it's bad, but because it doesn't serve the vision. One of the best ways to stay rich, financially, mentally, emotionally, is to filter your choices through your purpose. And purpose sharpens your no. No to that extra scroll on social media when you could be reading something that expands your mind. No to that quick dopamine hit that'll leave you further from discipline. No to the friend who always brings drama but never growth. No to the business deal that sounds good but steals your peace. Because you know what's better than a good deal? A clear conscience and an undivided path. You don't have to say no in anger. Say it with grace. Say it with certainty. But say it. Because every no to something that cost you your future is a yes to the legacy you're building. And what's that worth? Everything. So the next time something tempting shows up, don't just ask, do I want it? Ask, will this take me where I'm going? Because the truth is, staying rich isn't about how much you can afford, it's about what you're willing to avoid. It's a strange thing. When people think of building wealth, they imagine big breaks, jackpot wins, or business explosions that happen overnight. But here's what I've found. Success doesn't shout, it whispers. And those whispers come in the form of small, seemingly insignificant choices you make every single day. That cup of coffee you buy without thinking, that dollar you toss without tracking, the chapter you didn't read, or the phone call you chose not to make, all of those moments either inch you toward fortune or quietly lead you to frustration. I used to believe that change had to be massive, I thought. If I'm going to turn my life around, it's going to take something big. But I learned the opposite was true. Real change comes in small daily decisions repeated with discipline. You skip one coffee and invest those few dollars it feels like nothing. Do it every day for a year, and suddenly you've built a little nest egg. Compound that over 5 years, and you've got the start of financial security. And it wasn't the amount, it was the consistency. I remember a time when I decided to read just 10 pages a day. That didn't feel like much. 10 pages? But over the course of a year, I had finished over a dozen books on finance, personal development, and business. That's like sitting down for hours with some of the brightest minds who ever lived. It didn't happen in a burst of effort. It happened because I didn't stop 10 pages every day. That little routine created a shift in my thinking, and that shift altered the course of my finances forever. Think about this. If you reach out to one new potential client a day, that's 30 people in a month. 2 or 3 might say yes. Multiply that by a year, and you've got 365 connections, maybe 50 to 100 new clients if you follow up. That's how you build a business. One seed at a time, one conversation at a time. You don't need to hit a home run on day one. You just need to show up and swing the bat every day. The challenge is, poor thinking doesn't see this. It's always looking for fireworks, for the fast result. It says, that won't make a difference. But wealthy thinking, it sees the long game. It says, do it anyway. Stack it, layer it, let it compound. And over time, the invisible becomes visible. The small becomes mighty. Wealth isn't built in moments of glory. It's built in the quiet hours when no one's watching and you choose to stay consistent. So my challenge to you is simple. Make the small choices count. Save a little. Learn a little. Reach out a little. Every little action done long enough becomes the fortune you're after. One of the great turning points in my life came when I learned the principle that the wealthy don't trade time for money. They build things that work even while they sleep. You see, if every dollar you earn comes from your effort alone, you're limited. You only have so many hours, so much energy, and so much focus in a day. But when you build or own something that earns while you're resting, you've stepped into a different game. That's where real wealth begins, not just income, but freedom. Now, the path to that kind of wealth isn't mysterious. It starts with investing in knowledge, not gimmicks, not shortcuts. Real applicable knowledge. The first form of leverage you'll ever have is between your ears. And it's amazing when you learn how money works, how business works, how systems operate. You begin to see opportunities others are blind to. That's how the wealthy think. They don't just work harder, they work smarter. And that difference is everything. I remember reading about a man who worked 10 years writing a book. Not a bestseller overnight. Just a solid book that helped solve a problem people cared about. At first, it brought in a trickle. Then as word spread, it became steady income. And eventually, it became enough to pay his bills while he focused on new ventures. That's the power of creating once and earning forever. Whether it's a book, a course, a software tool, or even a smart investment, when you stop being the only worker in your world, you start being a builder of wealth. And this doesn't mean everyone needs to write books or launch companies. It means we must train our thinking, learn to spot assets instead of just incomes. Assets work for you. A rental property pays you while you're on vacation. A dividend stock pays you while you're sleeping. A well-designed online course can reach people in dozens of countries while you're having dinner with your family. That's what we mean when we say, make money while you sleep. It's not magic, it's mechanics. The mechanics of learning, building, and planting seeds that grow in your absence. But notice the order. First, invest in knowledge. Then use that knowledge to build. Many people want the income without the input. They want the return without the responsibility. But it doesn't work that way. You've got to pay the price up front. Study, build, improve. Then over time, your knowledge becomes capital. Your ideas become income. Your systems become freedom. The question isn't, can I do this? The question is, will I learn enough and stay long enough to make it real? Because once you do, you'll wake up one day and find that your money didn't sleep just because you did. And that, my friend, is how you make wealth whisper to you even in the silence of night. I've always believed that opportunity is like a visitor. It doesn't call ahead, it just knocks. And here's the truth. Most people miss it not because they didn't want it, but because they weren't ready for it. You don't get ready when opportunity arrives, you get ready long before. That's the difference between the person who walks through the door when it opens and the one who watches it close from the other side. You've got to prepare in faith, like something big is already on its way, even if your current circumstances show no sign of it yet. Years ago, I remember meeting a young man who worked a job that paid very little, but he carried himself like a future leader. He told me, I read every night, I study marketing in the morning, I'm building my network, I'm saving what little I can, because when the right person comes along, I'll be ready. And you know what happened? 6 months later, he met a mentor who offered him a place on his team. That one moment changed his whole financial trajectory, but it wasn't the meeting that made the difference. It was the preparation before it. He didn't wish for opportunity, he prepared for it. That's a principle worth engraving in your philosophy. Opportunity rewards the ready. You don't plant the seed when the rain falls, you plant it in dry soil and trust the rain will come. The preparation is proof of your belief. If you want to attract high-level opportunity, you must become a high-level person before it arrives. Study when no one's watching. Save when it's hard. Practice your communication. Refine your thinking. Build relationships that might open a door in the future. Stack small wins every single day. These are the invisible investments that make opportunity visible later. I've always said the worst time to learn how to swim is when you're drowning. And the worst time to prepare for success is when it's already at your doorstep. By then it's too late. Success doesn't wait. It finds the prepared, the diligent, the ones who have been practicing in silence. That's who gets the contract, the investor, the promotion, or the breakthrough. Not always the most talented, but the most ready. So the real work starts before the recognition. That's the part most people miss. They only gear up when there's a deadline or a spotlight. But the wealthy mindset says, let me prepare now, so when the call comes, I don't have to scramble, I can just say yes. And here's the secret. The call always comes. Maybe not today, maybe not next month, but life has a way of rewarding the prepared. So prepare not because of what you see, but because of what you believe is coming. Opportunity is not a matter of luck, it's a matter of readiness. I've often said that life whispers at first, and when you ignore it, it starts shouting. And sometimes the loudest lessons come dressed in pain. Financial pain, emotional pain, the pain of regret. But here's the truth. Pain can destroy you, or it can build you. The difference lies in what you do with it. The wealthy don't avoid discomfort, they use it. They take their frustrations and turn them into fuel. Because if you're tired of being broke, tired of living paycheck to paycheck, tired of being behind while others surge ahead, that tired feeling can be the very thing that launches you into a new life. There was a time in my early days when I sat at my kitchen table with a pile of bills I couldn't pay and a bank account that mocked me. I remember the embarrassment of avoiding calls, the frustration of feeling stuck, the shame of telling my family we had to wait until next month. And I'll tell you, that pain hit deep. But instead of letting it defeat me, I grabbed a notebook and wrote it all down. Not just the numbers, though I did that too, but the feelings, the anger, the helplessness. And right next to that, I wrote the words, "Never again." That phrase became a compass. It lit a fire inside me. I made a commitment. I was going to learn everything I could about money, about business, about personal discipline. I wasn't going to blame the economy, the company, the system, or luck. I was going to take ownership. I let the pain become my teacher. And the lessons stuck because they were earned. You see, when something hurts enough, you stop negotiating with mediocrity. You stop tolerating what used to seem okay. You stop drifting and start designing. That's the moment everything changes. You start setting goals with real weight behind them, not fluffy resolutions, but non-negotiables. You decide that financial freedom isn't optional anymore, it's required. You don't save if you can, you save because you must. You invest because your future depends on it. You learn because ignorance already cost you enough. So here's the strategy. Take out a sheet of paper and write down every frustration you're feeling financially. Be specific. Where is the pain showing up? Then, write one clear goal next to each problem. If you're in debt, write the amount and a plan to tackle it. If you feel underpaid, set a target to increase your income and skills. If you feel uneducated about money, commit to reading one book this month. Don't let the pain be random. Make it useful. That's how you flip the script. Pain becomes purpose. Frustration becomes focus. Regret becomes resolve. The poor mindset avoids pain or complains about it. But the wealthy mindset says, this feeling is pointing to something I need to fix, and I'm going to fix it. Pain is not the enemy, it's the wake-up call. It's the invitation to rise. Let it lead you not just away from what you don't want, but directly toward what you do. When you do that, you'll look back one day and realize that your breakthrough started the moment you wrote down your never again. Let me tell you something I've seen over and over in life. The ones who win big aren't always the most talented. They're not always the sharpest, the most charismatic, or the ones with the perfect timing. In fact, I've seen many incredibly gifted people lose a knot because they lack talent, but because they lack consistency. And I've seen average folks rise to the top not because they had some magical advantage, but because they were faithful. They showed up every day. They did what needed to be done, especially when they didn't feel like doing it. That's the real difference. You see, talent gives you a head start, but it's consistency that finishes the race. And the problem with talent is sometimes it tricks you into thinking you don't need discipline. It whispers, you're good enough to get away with slacking today. But the law of consistency says, don't skip the work, especially when no one's watching. And that law always wins over time. I remember early on in my journey, I met a young man who could sell anything. Charismatic, quick, smooth with his words, he could outsell everyone on the floor. But 6 months later, he was gone. You know why? He showed up late. He missed meetings. He didn't follow up with customers. Talent got him in the door, but inconsistency pushed him out. Meanwhile, there was a quiet guy in the back, wasn't flashy, didn't talk much, but he was there early every morning. He made the calls. He followed up. He read every book I recommended. And you know what happened? 2 years later, he was leading the team. Why? Not because he had the most talent, but because he had the most faithfulness. That's what I want you to understand. Life rewards the steady. You don't need to hit a home run every day. You just need to show up and swing day after day, page after page, call after call. Save that $10. Read those 10 pages. Shake one more hand. Show up again and again and again. Because consistency does something magical. It compounds. It turns small efforts into massive results. Over time, invisible progress becomes visible success. That's how empires are built. Not in one day, but every day. So here's the real wealth principle. Stay in the game. Not just when it's exciting, not just when the results are visible, but especially when it's quiet, especially when it feels slow. Because that's where most people quit, and that's where the rewards start showing up. The truth is, success isn't always about having the most, it's about doing the most consistently. Let others chase quick wins. You stay faithful, because the game always rewards the one who refuses to leave the field. Let me tell you something powerful. Money can fade, accounts can be drained, and even empires can crumble. But the philosophy that built them, that's what lasts. That's what becomes your true wealth. And too many people focus only on what they're going to leave behind in dollars and cents. But here's the truth. The greatest inheritance isn't found in a bank account. It's written in your character, your values, your habits, and the wisdom you pass on. Now, I've met people with plenty of money, but no legacy. They left behind confusion, division, or a vacuum where principles should have been. And I've met people who didn't leave much financially, but gave their families something far more powerful, a roadmap, a way to think, a way to act, a way to believe in themselves. That's real wealth. You want to build a legacy? Start by documenting what you stand for. Sit down and write out your beliefs about money. Not just how to earn it, but how to respect it. How to use it as a tool, not a trophy. What does generosity look like to you? What's your stance on debt, saving, investing, giving? Write that down. These things don't just guide your actions, they shape the future for those coming behind you. When my life started to change, it wasn't just because I figured out how to make money. It was because I discovered a philosophy that made sense to me. I began to write down ideas, collect quotes, jot down the lessons I was learning from others' mentors, books, life itself. And those ideas became the foundation for how I live. Later, they became the foundation I shared, and when you live long enough with the right principles, they don't just stay with you, they echo. If you're a parent, this is even more important. Your children are watching not just what you say about money, but how you behave with it. You can't expect them to save if they never see you save. You can't teach generosity if all they see is consumption. So teach it out loud. Talk about the grocery budget. Show them how you plan your giving. Let them see you learn. Let them watch you grow. And more than that, let them hear your why. I've always believed in the power of handwritten wisdom, a letter to your children, a notebook of lessons, a list of values. These things last. Long after the bank account is emptied, long after the cars are gone or the house is sold, those lessons remain. They become the compass. They help guide decisions you'll never live to see. And when your name is mentioned, it won't be for what you left in the will. It'll be for how you lived your life. And remember, the best legacies aren't just inherited, they're multiplied. When you share your principles, you don't just create wealth, you create wealth creators. You start a ripple that outlasts you. That's how you build something eternal. That's how you live forever through others. Because real wealth isn't what you leave behind, it's what you leave within. So here we are, at the end of this journey, but truly it's only the beginning of yours. The beginning of a richer way of thinking, a deeper way of living, and a wiser path toward lasting wealth. You see, success doesn't respond to luck. It responds to discipline, vision, and action. The wealthy don't wait for perfect timing. They start with what they have, where they are, and they build slowly, consistently, daily. So here's the call. Don't just listen and apply. Take one principle today, just one, and live it out fully for the next 30 days. Whether it's tracking your spending, reading daily, or writing your wealth philosophy, start. Because action is the seed, and consistency is the water. And given time, you'll grow something unstoppable. Teach what you're learning. Share your philosophy. Live your values in front of others. Not just to build a fortune, but to build a future for yourself and for those who will come after you. If you want wealth, begin with wisdom. If you want legacy, live with purpose. The journey to prosperity starts when you decide today to think like the wealthy and act like it matters.